I was born in Kingston, 1950, in a town named Johnsontown, in the Rockford area. I grew up in my next town named Beaumont Gardens. That is where all the beach in Kingston is now. The beaches and yeah, this beach with all music and everything. We had Don Drummond and Tommy McCook and Scatterlights usually play. And I just go and stay outside and listen to them upstairs playing, I have to just sneak out of the house and just go down there on Sundays and listen, Sunday evening and listen. I attended Kingston Tech and did radio and television and servicing, My uncle, that's my mother's brother, That's my mother's maiden name, Reed, Pearl letter Reed, Because in the early days, when I'm not busy, I went to the studio and sit down and listen and watch and listen, and learn some stuff. So anyway, him say, that's where I should be. I say, yes, I'm Carter. Say, yes, I'm serious about it. I say, okay. I work with all of those artists from those days. Alton Ellis, John Hall, Paragons, Melodians, any artists you could think about those days. In those days, I work with all of them. It was such a pleasure, Techniques, Tom McCook and the Supersonics, all of those people. So I really get trained the proper way because everything was live, no electronics, B3 organ, upright piano, all of those things. So everything, you have to have a good ears. Ears have to tune in properly, My uncle heard that he had cancer. And I think it was in his stomach. So he had to pull back. And so I heard he wanted to lease the business to Sona Pottinger, And so wow, why? I thought you wanted me to carry on the business. So here goes Pottinger. Pottinger come in, and take over. But before that, after I realized that there was a lot of tape I used, all it tapes, organs, all of those tapes I usually work on 2-track. Anyway, so the passenger come in and say, well, Errol, I have to give your uncle $2,000 every month. So how can I achieve this? I said, what do you mean? Or you can achieve? Say, all of the tapes them there. Say, yeah. Say, yeah. What? So she looked at me and said, what do you think? Okay, how you think we can start all this thing? I said, we can make some various artists album. And I can do some dub albums. And first light up, she and Al Plummer. Al Plummer was from one of the radio stations, So we do all of these things and then we start do some real recording now. Master Griffiths, we start with. And Naturally, and Stepping Out of Babylon, those 2 albums. Great albums to me and still is. Because, Naturally, you see all of those songs, naturally all of those Bob Wright. That is from Studio One. Studio One was the original for those recordings. So we was of redoing all of these things to modern sound. One Monday, Sporting your television. Errol, Bob Andy is the next person coming to do an album. So Bob Andy, Miss Sporting just say, yeah, Bob Andy coming to do an album for us. I say, yeah, wow. I never meet Bob Andy before, you know. Never. I just listen to his music. I usually have a sound system in the early days and play his music because pure hits, pure hits. So I was so happy to see him, to know that he's coming. And when I meet him, it was like, it was the next level, you know. And Bob know what he wants. That man knows musically everything what he wants. So it was no problem for the musicians, the revolutionaries, you know. It was no problem. It was like, and he's always smiling. That much, yeah, I can never forget his smile those days. You know, always smiling, Bob Andy. And we went through and do the album smooth and nice and everything. He was happy and everything. Everybody happy. And yeah, so that is it. It was great. It was a great working with him, you know. I remember Ranch McLean, Sly, Ansel Collins, Earl Lindo was on organ too. Radcliffe Bryant and Sticky Thompson percussion. But great musician. You don't have to worry about a thing apart from just sing. And if it came, and then now Marcus is there too to make sure that everything is sync and no bad notes and all that. Completely not like nowadays they come with a melody and later on they write the lyrics. Bob always have his songs them completed. You know, no humming. You sing the song down, you know, for them first with the piano, and then now they come up with their parts, you know. And if you want to change a little bass line, he will change it or change anything, you know. And they work with him, and he was easy to work with, no problem. We usually have a Mrs. Reed look about the studio, clean up the studio, and sometimes she'll bring lunch and all of that. So it was an employee. He took care of the studio. No, not Lucy Reed, it's a different Reed. Most of the time, Mrs. Pottinger is in a record shop, downtown, TikTok. She she have to they're managing the record shop and all that. And we up there doing the business part for her, you know. So I'm more call her executive producer than a producer because she don't have nothing to do with the production of such. Neither Marcia or Bob Andy stuff, you know. Bob Andy know what he wants, and he actually was on top of that. He actually produced that. You know, so he was more that way. He's never do much apart from go look about the business, collect the money, and put it down. Nothing, no bonus. I remember one time, you see, Legalized album with Peter Touch. That album done a treasure, the basic 8 tracks, like the drum, because it was the Wailers did that play on that album. And the Peter Touch. And Bob passed through because him and Peter have a good vibe to that, you know. After all of this, Bob and Marcia and Bob, I did some culture album. Right? I did 2 culture album. And I don't see no movement of finance, no salary, no better salary or nothing, and it just stretching me out. And then one day, Master called me and said, Errol, Bob Marley want to see you. I tell them you're my engineer, and Bob Marley want to meet you. My band can't talk about one. That is definitely, his music was the life of Jamaican music. Play a song right, and every song. His whole time songs, I mean, we can't talk about. And this man know his music. He know what he wants. I remember, matter of fact, we did a Bob Marley show in Ethiopia. And Baba was on it, I think with the Marley family, I don't remember what year it was, and Baba was a part, was on it. But he didn't rehearse with the band rehearsed his music. And he's on stage, the band start not playing his music right. You know what Bob did? Bob tell Bob, stop. And Bob sing his song, them a cappella. And feel comfortable, and the crowd go crazy. Audience, big people, lot of people. So he knows what he wants. Bob Andy, he's the next good artist. He listens to Jamaican music. He's good. Wow. I don't like to even think about all of these legends that just pass on like this, Bob Andy, Bob Marley, boy, I tell you, the same, all the first name. Great people, great artists. Yeah.